information can be found at the bottom of the slide, and we'll go ahead and share the slide after the webinar, but feel free to reach out with any questions or any comments. And I'll also go ahead and take a look at any questions asked during the meeting after I finish the presentation here, and then we'll take a look at a couple of answers here. All right, you are a business owner and you're currently facing a few issues, such as a hybrid workforce. Now, some of your employees are working from home, while others might be working from a central workspace. You're now struggling to tell where your employees are spending their time and how productive or unproductive your employees are. You would also like the convenience of being able to see some of these pieces of data from one central or aggregated space. Now, what is employee monitoring? Employee monitoring will allow you to monitor your hybrid workforce to provide insights or data around your employees' activities in one central convenient toolset. While I'll go through some of these examples within Terramind, there are a ton of employee monitoring tools out there, and I implore you to do your own research and potentially look at a few different tools. All right, on today's meeting, we'll cover these 4 subjects. Number 1, defining productivity. Now, you can't improve your productivity unless you actually define what productivity means. A few examples here would be the ability to classify applications such as Slack, Skype, Telegram, and websites such as Facebook, YouTube, or Twitter as productive or unproductive for some of your team members. Number 2, a limit. Now, once we define what we'd like to consider as being productive, we now have the option to limit unproductive activities. And these, of course, are optional, but you might add a great value to your business or workforce. Now, as an example, you'd be able to limit how much time is spent on specific social media activities or block these activities from being accessed altogether. Number 3, investigate. Now, after defining and limiting, you now have the option to use any of our investigative reports and tools to take a look at any time an employee may have been in violation of any of these limiting rules, either by accident or on purpose, which we'll be able to gain more insight on by using any of our tools provided. And then number 4, pull reports. Well, this is the reason we're all here. Reporting is almost limitless within Terramind. We will provide a background including, but not limited to, work time, active time, idle time, time spent on specific activities with the ability to further drill down and investigate. Now, this will allow you to make business decisions and see how those decisions play out for your business in real time. I'm very excited to show you some of our reporting capabilities, and this is where we are going to spend the majority of our time today. Right, define productivity. So we're going to go ahead and take a look at a few examples of defining productive or unproductive activities. Since we will not be able to improve productivity unless we actually define what it means to be productive first. So we'll go ahead and classify a few websites, a few applications for different departments. And I'm going to go ahead and start with some social media activities, and then we'll move on and classify a few applications and categories. So let's take a look at a couple of examples here. We're going to go ahead and use our productivity profiles for that. And here's where we can go about defining what we like to consider productive or unproductive. Now, we have the option to do that on a global basis here in our general profile, or we have the option to define child profiles for our departments or users. So as an example, let's say we have a marketing department. Now, in most cases, our marketing department is expected to spend some time on social media. So we'd be able to say something along the lines as in LinkedIn.com. We might consider that productive for our marketing team. As soon as we create that role, anytime our marketing team now spends on LinkedIn.com is considered productive. Then we also, of course, have the option to do that by the application. So as an example here, Slack, right? So we'll use Slack. And once again, create that role anytime and now spend on Slack. On the Slack application by our marketing team will be considered accordingly once again. And now we have the option to potentially jump into another one of our teams and classify those same activities as being unproductive. So as an example, our sales team here. So we'll now use our sales team and define LinkedIn.com as being unproductive or unclassified we'll go with unproductive. We also have the option to do that by category. So through our partnership with Netstar, we can select entire categories here. So we might be able to select in a category such as social networks in general, make that unproductive for our sales team, and then have all of their time spent on these activities considered accordingly. All right. Number 2, limiting behaviors. Now, after having defined what you'd like to consider as being productive or unproductive activities, you might want to actually limit the amount of time your employees are able to spend with these within these activities. So through our behavior rules and policies, you're able to set up a ton of automation and build rules around anything your employees are doing. And in some cases, even things they might not be doing. So let's go ahead and take a look at a few rules, and I'll show you Termite's automation capabilities here. So we'll jump into our behavior rules and policies. And from here, we offer a ton of templates, so you can customize them and make them your own just so they fit within the organization. I will go ahead and simply create a new test rule here. I will go ahead and name this test rule. And then we have more templates to choose from here. We can customize them and once again, make them our own. And we also have the ability to build rules around the 3 categories. 1, agent schedule. Now this here would directly be correlating to our employees' schedules. And with that, we have the ability to detect schedule violations. Then we have the option to build rules around our employees' activities. And some options or some examples would be here. The ability to build rules around websites, limiting, giving time limits, redirecting websites, blocking application usage, detecting on-screen content and notifying you on detection of that content. Also, being able to build rules around any keystrokes your employees are inputting, and then any file, email, instant message usage as well. We can also build rules around any content. Now, this would leverage our DLP engine. And with that, we can create rules around content you may consider to be sensitive and that potentially prevent employees from exfiltrating or sharing that information. So we'll go ahead and start with an agent schedule-based rule. As a quick example, it might not be very productive for our departments or for our users to stay idle for a specific period of time, right? So let's say I would like to know if my employees are sitting idle for a certain amount of minutes, or maybe take additional actions here. So we'll go ahead and select the agent schedule piece, and then apply our rule to the users. So I'll select everyone here. And then we'll hit continue. And here's where we define our type of schedule violation. So this really could be anything here. Maybe their daily work time is less than 8 hours and we would like to know about it. And maybe my employees are late, maybe they're absent, or maybe they're working on their day off. And that might actually be considered a security risk in some organizations. So we can take actions here. Or as per my example, let's just say the employees are sitting idle for 30 minutes. There's no interaction with keyboard and mouse, and we'd like to take an action. We'll hit continue and then be presented with our action set here. So we now have the option to notify any managers. And these are email notifications, could be single or multiple managers. And we'd also be able to layer this with a warning message to the users themselves. Could be anything, maybe something very unfriendly, such as this, which I don't recommend. And then we'd be able to also lock that user out. So with this said, the user would actually receive a pop-up in the middle of their screen, no choice but to click OK, at which point they will be locked out of Windows. So this is very easy, very intuitive to build, specifically these agent schedule-based rules. So at this point, I'll go ahead and build another one. And I'm going to go ahead and make this around employees' activities. And we'll go ahead and do something very simple up front here. And we built a rule around LinkedIn activity. We classified LinkedIn to be unproductive for our sales department and productive for our marketing team. So I'd now like to go ahead and limit what our sales department can actually do with LinkedIn. I'll select web pages, specify when this rule should be active, continue, and apply our sales team here to this rule. And now we'll go ahead and hit continue. And I will just say, if any of my sales department members, sales team members accesses LinkedIn, we'll take an action. Now we can also go a step further and limit the amount of time they'd be able to spend here. I will simply leave it at this and we'll go ahead and take an action. So we now once again have the ability to notify any managers via email. We can once again block the action from happening altogether, and we could do that silently or with a warning message. Once again, we can lock that user out and simply redirect the website. So upon my sales team actually visiting linkedin.com, I might want to redirect them to something productive, right? We can also go ahead and warn the user with a simple warning message. We would be able to redirect the task we're tracking the time against. Now, if you choose to not record a video on a continuous basis, maybe for any reason, code of ethics, compliance, storage-related concerns, you would be able to simply define your local buffer here. So maybe 15 minutes before, as well as 15 minutes after. Now, with this in place, Terramite will now keep a circular buffer on the local machine and then only upload the video once we actually detect that rule violation. And that should give you a pretty good picture as to what led up to your employee violating this rule and how did they recover from that violation afterwards. Right, and then we would also be able to run any Windows command, so we can get very creative with those. Now, this activity-based rule was a very simple one. Let's go ahead and build something a little bit more in depth here. As a quick example here, let's say I would like to give my employees the ability to use their USB devices or flash drives, but I would like them not to write any information to those. So we'll select files. Also, my employees should be able to send and receive emails, including attachments, but let's say I do not want them to do that from any domain that is not my own. So from their personal email, they should not be able to send attachments. So we'll select files and emails, and then we'll specify when this rule should be active once again. We'll apply our users here. I'm going to go ahead and stick with our sales team, and then we'll simply start building our conditions. So I've mentioned I don't want them to conduct a write operation here, so I'll select the write operation. Of course, we have the ability to layer these with different conditions as well. And now we can use a little plus icon up here and select any programs, any network hosts, file paths, or cloud providers. And we would be able to take action on any entries here. I will simply select all external drives and then move on to my email condition. So this may quite simply be an outgoing email with an attachment. And as I've mentioned, that email is not coming from our internal domain. So anything except Terramite, they should not be able to send that from. So now we'll go ahead and take some actions once again. As you can see, the same action set is once again presented to us. And as you might be able to tell here, these are completely unrelating to any content. These are just operations the employees are engaging in. So at this time, I would like to go ahead and quickly build a DLP rule here around the same conditions. We'll use a content sharing rule in this case. And then we'll use our files and emails once again. Apply our sales team to this rule. And then here is what makes this rule different from the one we've just built. So here's where we'd be able to define what makes this data sensitive. And this could be any predefined classified data, such as financial, health, personally identifiable data, or code snippets. Now, all of these are regular expression based. You could potentially write your own as well. We have the ability to choose from any file properties, file origin, so where is the file coming from, or simply data content. Now, this is where we'd actually be able to write our own regular expressions, as well as simply match any specific content. And I'm going to go ahead and make this a very simple example. Let's say my sensitive content here is the word protest, right? And this could, of course, be anything. This is just an example. We'll hit continue and then simply start building our conditions around this once more. So let's say that is a write operation to an external drive, and we'll move on to our email condition. And once again, that is an outgoing email, including an attachment. So now we're going to go ahead and scan any outgoing email attachments, as well as any write operations to any external drives for any text containing a protest. And once we match that content, we'll be able to take those actions. Now, since we've already taken a look at that simple mode, we'll take a quick look at our advanced thresholds here. Now, this is where we would be able to define what we would like to do if rules are being violated multiple times, right? So let's say daily, the rule violation happens once. We might want to mark the risk level as being moderate here. And at the same time, we'll go ahead and notify one of our managers. And at this time, we'll simply go ahead and warn the user. We'll make this very clear, so the user should be well aware not to take the action again. If that user does take the action again in the same day, we will raise our risk level here. Once again, let's notify one of the managers. And at this time, I think we will go ahead and simply block the action from happening. Once again, letting them know very clearly not to take the action again. Now, they have been warned once and then blocked and warned another time. Now, if they do take this action once more, that's the third time, I will raise the risk level all the way. I think it might be fair to assume there's some malicious intent here. So we'll once again notify one of our managers, and then we'll go ahead and lock that user out of their computer here. So this here is a pretty good way to ensure that users don't actually keep violating those rules over and over again with the same results. Right, I saw a question come in. So can we block all external devices, exclude corporate flash drives? So you'd be able to define which devices you'd like to block, right? So you can block specific file paths. And I'm not 100% sure what you're referring to by exclude corporate flash drives. So if you could elaborate on that, I would appreciate it, and I'll try to find that answer for you real quick. All right. So after having defined what it means for your employees to be productive and build a few behavior rules, you might actually want to investigate if any of your users are in violation of your created policies and rules. So for that reason, we'll go ahead and take a look at our behavior alerts report, where you'll be able to get a better understanding as to which of your users are violating your behavior policies. So let's take a quick look at our behavior alerts report. Now here, we'll be able to see basic information around those behavior violations right here. Now we can also take a look at our risk tab, where we are able to see just that. Risk associated with any rules, risk accumulated by any users, by any rules, departments, and then we have the ability to filter for specifics. Let's go ahead and take a look at one of the rules that is in violation here. We have the ability to filter for anything we are wanting to see here. And now I can simply go ahead and filter by that policy. So let's say that is a productivity policy right here. I will now minimize my filters. And we see a LinkedIn redirection right here. So we'll go ahead and filter for that. And apparently our sales department is in violation of this rule 21 times this week. And we can now go ahead and drill down and see exactly who violates our rules at which point in time, and then have the option to right-click each of these entries here and actually take a look at the video recording. So let's take a quick look at the violation itself. So he went to LinkedIn, and apparently there was a redirected to another page. Let's take another quick look at another violation taking place here. And I will go ahead and reset my filters, and I'll go ahead and just select a warning as the action to be taken here, so I can present to you what that actually looks like. So we have a user that accessed the management folder. That was violated quite a few times this week, and we'll once again take a look at what the violation actually is going to be presented to the user. Yeah, and as you can see here, this is a sensitive file, handled with care, and of course those are completely customizable for you as well. All right. Yeah, our reports really sit at the core of our solution. So using our reports, you'll get a better understanding where your employees spend their time, how active, how inactive they are being. So all of our reports can be exported, customized in a very granular fashion. So let's take a quick look at our productivity report to start with. Now, our productivity report shows us information around just that. We're able to see which of our employees have worked the most time, which of our employees are producing the most idle time, and then who's the most productive, which would, of course, be depending on your productivity classifications. Of course, we have a couple of additional tabs here, so we can get that data presented to us on a department basis, as well as on a task basis. And then we can use any of the blue bars we're seeing on this report to filter for specifics. So maybe I'm seeing something a little bit concerning here. Cheryl, she had 1.1 hour of idle time last week, which is the top for the entire organization. So we'll go ahead and click, at which point the entire report is filtered for Cheryl here in this case. And now we're able to see Cheryl worked 56 hours, 1 hour and 10 minutes of which is idle time. And now we're able to see that she was productive for about 7 hours and 21. 7 hours and 10 of which is with no idle time. So this just looks like there was about 11 minutes of idle time during any productive activities here. And we're also able to see that this user in question here, Cheryl, was unproductive for around 29 hours. And we'd also be able to show you the activity level here. And this, of course, would be directly relating to any keyboard and mouse movement. All right, so at this point, let's go ahead and take a look at a couple of additional reports just to show you our reporting capabilities in depth. We'll go ahead and start with apps and websites here. Now, this report here can be used to identify or investigate absolutely anything in relation to app and website usage. Once again, everything you see on this webpage is clickable. As soon as you click something, it will redefine the entire page, and also any tabs you would have added here to the top. So we'll go ahead and select the last 3 months for a larger size of sample data here, and we'll take a look at our categories. So we're seeing native apps here as a top used category with 6,800 hours. Now that here is to be expected. Those are locally running applications and executables. Not a huge concern for me. I will skip that. News, however, should not be number 2 here with 4,064 hours. So let's drill in. So as soon as we click the news, everything we're now able to see on this page is directly relating to the news category. And as I've mentioned, anything in our other tabs here as well. So our aggregated tab showing us some more domain related information. And then we have a category tab here as well, which shows us just that information around those categories. So we'll be able to see any employees that have been spending their time on the news category. And we see more departments, as well as categories and reputations. Now, our category timeline here is showing me that at the beginning of March here, we see a little bit of a spike in news usage. So I can now go ahead and drag and drop and really zone in on that time frame. So now I'm able to see that in that time frame I have just selected, we spent 150 hours on the news category, 1 hour and 12 minutes of which is idle time. And we're also able to see productive versus unproductive time here. So now we'll have the option to drill down deeper and see this information on a per domain basis once again. So it looks like edition.cnn.com with 53 hours top used news domain in the time frame selected. And we can once again drill down deeper. So now we're seeing any users that have been spending their time on this activity. Donald here apparently leading the pack with 15 hours and 20 minutes, all of which is considered to be unproductive. So now, once again, we can drill down deeper. And at this time, we are going to be presented with every time the user in question here access the website. And we might be missing any information here. And that, of course, is information we can go ahead and add. We can use our columns to add a ton of things in addition here. So let's say, just as a quick example, we would like the classification. What is this classified as? Are these activities productive? Are they unproductive? We'll add our classification. And then we'll also be able to add the URL as an example, as well as a count. I would like to see how many times my users actually access these activities. I'll minimize my columns here, at which time we're going to be presented with those columns we've just added. So let's drill back into the users. And immediately I'm able to see Donald here access the website in question 520 times. Here are all the URLs, and here's all that classification. So all of this activity is actually unproductive. Now we have the option to right-click each of those entries and take some actions. First action, take a look at the employees page, investigate the user. Now this here brings us to the employees page, which really is sort of a single pane of glass view for all the reports we have to offer, just on a user basis. Now from here, we can also make changes to any of the users' productivity profiles, to their monitoring options or behavior. And our account info button here will allow us to define the access level. So we can potentially give users access to their own reports and let them sort of use those reports to self-motivate. Could be a nice little self-motivator. It doesn't really just have to be a tool in catching your employees and doing something wrong here. All right, jumping back into the BI report here. The next option we have from right here is to classify those activities. So once you have your profiles defined, we can simply go in here, select the classify option, at which point we can now select the profile and the classification. And as soon as you hit save, you just classify an activity. So very easy, very simple to do. Then we also have the option to view the recording, and viewing the recording is available through tons of places in the system here. We can verify the classification profile, and this will simply let us know what these activities are actually classified as. And then we have the option to open the URL in a new tab, and this will allow us to investigate these activities in our local browser. Now, this was really just sort of a single piece of investigative work we can do through any of these reports. There is a ton of things in addition we can filter for. So let's go ahead and take a look at a couple of additional examples. So we'll use our filters here. And I'm going to go ahead and at this point reset my filters and add additional ones here. Let's say, as an example, you would like to find out how much combined company time was spent on a specific activity, right? Such as YouTube. Simply typing in YouTube immediately brings all that usage up. So that is filtered for YouTube once again. We can now hover and see that we've spent 4.01 hours on YouTube. Here are the employees that have been spending their time there. Here are the departments. Once again, we have the option to right click, drill down, verify all that activity here, just like we've done a minute ago. All right, and maybe just a little bit something a little bit more in depth. So let's say, as an example, your organization is engaged in a lawsuit. You're now trying to get a couple of pieces of information here. One, who's talking about the lawsuit? Two, what applications or websites are they using to talk about the lawsuit? And three, and maybe most importantly, who are they actually speaking about the lawsuit to? So we'll use our keystrokes for just that. Input the word lawsuit. And then as you are able to see, immediately we get the results back. Here are the users that have typed that word in the last 6 months. Here are all the applications, all the websites used to input that word, and immediately Skype and Facebook jump out at me. So we'll be able to select both of those. And once again, drill down to verify those specifics. We've now taken a look at a few times. So Skype was apparently used 20 times to type that word lawsuit in. And now we are once again able to see any users that have typed that word in. So it looks like Dustin typed the word in 12 times. And we're now able to drill down deeper, see every time the user typed that word in, and have the ability to right click, view the recording, which should really give us a pretty good picture as to what happened here today. All right, let's go ahead and take a quick look at a few additional reports here. Now, our email report. We're able to capture emails really through any email client. That may be a desktop Outlook, a Web Yahoo, a Gmail client, and many more. Now, we're able to give you the content of any emails while also preserving HTML formatting and images. So through this report, you'll be able to identify or investigate absolutely anything in relation to email usage. We have some basic email information right here. And we also have some attachment statistics as well as destination and source stats for you. And then, of course, much like the other reports we've just taken a look at, we can filter for anything we'd like to see here. And just as a quick example, let's say we're concerned with any outgoing emails that have come through a specific client this week. Let's go with Gmail here. I filter for these activities. Now I can go ahead and minimize my filters, and I'm immediately able to see we had 26 of those outgoing Gmails. We see the users that had those outgoing, and then we can take a look at those emails themselves. So I can simply go ahead and right click, view the email. And once again, that will be preserving HTML formatting and images. We can save these emails or print them for our records. Now, if the email has an attachment, we can simply click that attachment and download that, keep it for evidence purposes, or just review that from our local machine. All right, our next report here would be file events. Now, this relates to all file events, write operations, delete, access, rename, copy, paste. Now, even if an application is making changes to any app data folders, you will still be able to see that in this report, so nothing in relation to file events will be missed. Now, we have our web file events report, which of course would relate to uploads and downloads here. And we'll give you a detailed report on console commands. So if you have any IT admins or any users that are using command prompt on a regular basis, now this is where you'll be able to see the commands that are pushing through. We'll of course give you a detailed report on any searches conducted from any popular search engines. And now our printing report will allow us to see exactly who printed what at which point in time, and then we'll have the ability to right click and view the printed document, at which point we'll simply see what was printed. All right, just as a quick customization here, we'll take a look at what we can actually customize from our reports, and we'll go ahead and start with our productivity report here on this. So we have the ability to clone any of our reports, at which point they become completely customizable. So we can use our gear icon here and then rename our report. So let's just name this a test report. We have the option to share this with specific users or let other users or manager edit these reports as well. So as soon as I have that cloned, as I've mentioned, they become completely customizable. So if there's something that's here that I don't necessarily want to see, we can just get rid of it. If there's something we'd like to see in addition to what is here, we can add that. So let's quickly say I wanted to go ahead and add two widgets here. One widget around my idle time. So I would like to at a quick glance be able to tell when we see all that idle time accumulated for our organization. And number two, I'd like to see a widget around any counts. So how many behavior violations have occurred for my users? How many emails have they pushed through? How many console commands? So absolutely anything I can get a count on. So we'll go ahead and start with a widget around our idle time. So we'll go ahead and name this idle. And I'm going to go ahead and add that as a chart. What are we measuring here? What's the data source? That's our input activity as well as work time. Now we'll select the measures. As I've mentioned, that should be our idle time here. And now we have the option to define our dimensions. So first, that may be our hour. And second, that may be the day of the week. So now we have the option to define what this chart should actually look like. So we might want a bar chart. We might want columns, an area map, line entries, or a heat map. So personally, like the heat map here, since it's just giving me sort of at a glance information, hit OK. I just built myself a widget. I'm immediately now able to tell that from May 29th to June 4th, I saw the most idle time here Saturday, 3 o'clock. Very quickly built. So let's go ahead and build that second widget. I'll make this a grid around a count. I'm going to go ahead and quickly add all of our data sources here. Any count I would like to see here. Hit OK, at which point we're going to be presented with an empty grid. So we can now use, once again, our columns and add any information we'd like to see. So date and employee might be useful to see. And then we'll add any counts here real quick. So we have emails, we have behavior alerts, console commands, login sessions, how many times have they logged in, how many web searches have occurred, how many printed documents, how much social media activity, keystrokes, as well as file events and web file events. So now I'll minimize my columns. And as you can see here, I've just built myself a nice little dashboard that I wanted to see. It took me about a couple of minutes here. So really granular, really flexible control. Now, all of the reports can be exported either manually or in an automated fashion. So schedule the export to an email address of your choice whenever it needs to be received. All right. Now, this is essentially it from my end here. And if you have started your free trial yet or have not started your free trial or your trial has expired, I'd be happy to look into a trial extension for you or help you get set up. So just reach out to me and I'd be happy to assist with anything needed here. So the user does have to click OK. I'm seeing the question here from Kibio. So the user does have to click OK. Now, if they don't, they can't essentially use the computer for anything else, right? It's still locked essentially. Oscar asked if Termine works with web categories to block or monitor a rule. So we are able to define web categories based on productive and unproductive. We are not, however, able to build those rules around that. So there'll be single websites, single applications there. Latifa just asked if there's any way to remove wage information for productivity portal dashboard users. We want users to see their self-productivity, just not their wages. So there's a couple of options you can go about doing that. So one, if you want the managers to have access, you can remove the access to the wage information. For users themselves, you can leave that out, but I'd be happy to assist you with setting some of that up with you together. Just shoot me an email, Latifa. All right. Any further questions I can answer for you guys today? What plan do you need to have to report on productive hours? What information collected? How long is it stored? If the user moves from his desk and leaves the computer on, does he continue to count the productive hour? Can a branch manager be given monitoring access to only monitor his or her employees? Okay, let me go ahead and unpack those. So what plan do you need to have to report for the productive hours? That is available in all of our plans. So from starter to DLP. The information collected, how long is it stored? So that would largely depend on the deployment method you would choose. Should you choose to go with our on-premise deployment, you would be in complete control there. So you can keep as little or as much data as you would like. With our cloud solution, we'll simply store 6 months of your video data. Everything else will keep indefinitely for you. Now, if the user moves from his desk, leaves the computer on, does he continue to count to be productive? So that depends on what activity he last engaged in, right? So if he has, let's say there's one monitor and he was engaged in Outlook. Outlook is currently his forefront window, so his focused window, and it's considered to be productive. After a pre-specified time, that user is then going to be considered idle, right? And just because a user is productive does not necessarily mean those users are actually active. So we'll give you the differentiator to show you, was a user productive, idle, was a user unproductive, idle, and you'd be able to then see what a user may have done that would have led him to be idle. And then can a branch manager be given monitoring access to only monitor his or her employees? Absolutely. We have quite the powerful access control, so you can really fine tune the way your managers are able to see that data, who they're able to see the data from or not. So absolutely a granular access there. What sort of info can we provide for a company using tablets for their sales force people? So we don't have the ability to actually monitor mobile devices at this time. It really is desktops, laptops, and servers, both Mac as well as Windows based. So we would not be able to monitor any tablets. All right. Any further questions I'm able to answer here for you guys today? All right. If there are no further questions, I'd like to go ahead and thank you all for your time today. Once again, my name is Dennis. You can reach me under DENNISH at terramind.co. Any questions, any comments, shoot me an email. I'm happy to assist. Thank you, Sergey. That's appreciated.